I want to welcome everyone to the December 5th, 2018 meeting of the Revere Conservation Commission. If we can have everyone please stand and salute the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Okay, roll call. We have Heather Legier.
Here.
Member Ann Raponi.
Here.
Member Joe Lavalley. Here. Member Deborah Santiano McHatton.
Here.
Member David Etoff.
Here.
And Robert Cassidy is absent. Do we have a motion for the approval of the minutes from November 7th?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Ann makes a motion, Joe seconds it. All right, first item on the agenda is Mass DEP file. There's no number yet, so we'll figure it out, but the notice of intent, Hancock Associates, dredging of the Eastern County ditch and areas, Revere Street, North Shore Road area. So if we can have, come up and speak and name and address for the record, please. Just 1 second, Joe. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
And Ann seconds it. Joe, please just turn on the microphone.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. For the record, Joe Pesnola from Hancock Associates, representing Eurovest Development in the application for dredging of the Eastern County ditch from North Shore Road north across the back of the Waterfront Square projects to Revere Street, and then cleaning of the culvert under Revere Street, and then dredging the ditch to the north all the way down back until it crosses back under North Shore. It's about 2,600 linear feet, and we've been working very closely with the city, the mayor, Mr. O'Brien, DPW, engineering, to kind of come up with this plan and fully vet it. There was a long period of time that we had delay in it because we needed to get in and sample the sediment material, pre-characterize that for its pollutants, so that would dictate where that material went. We did all that, we got the report, and the material does have some contaminants in it, but it's not as, I guess, hot as we thought it was going to be. We thought we might have to take some of it to Maine, but it can be disposed of in a landfill, a lined landfill in Fitchburg. So we've targeted that. So as far as the project itself goes, we have 3 main access points. The first will be from Ocean Avenue, in between the 2 buildings that are known as the Vanguard. We'll get out that way and then develop just a haul road, laying down the vegetation that's there, and establishing temporary sediment basins. We'll be paralleling the ditch, reaching in with a bucket, taking the sediment out, putting it into the temporary sediment basins. Those will dewater back into the ditch. They'll have a poly liner under them to protect the area underneath. And then once it's dewatered to some degree, we'll load those onto trucks to take them to Fitchburg. That's the first area, and that covers 1,000 feet from North Shore Road to Revere. As far as the Revere Street culvert, we're going to jet and use a vac truck to take the debris and the sediment that's in that out, and that'll be similarly put into a temporary sediment area for dewatering and disposal before loading and to dispose of it. Then on the north side, we have 2 entry points. The north-south section of the ditch will be accessed off of Revere Beach Boulevard near Bianchi's, out behind the baseball field. We'll get out to that stretch and do similar, lay down the vegetation to create kind of a haul road, set up temporary sediment basins for stockpiling of the material during dewatering, loading out to Fitchburg. The last areas, the access is at the end of Bay Road, out into that area at the end, lay down the vegetation again, get out to that east-west portion of the ditch, and then move, similarly set up temporary sediment basins, dewater, load and haul the material out. We think the work will take 2 to 3 weeks, maybe 4. We have to do the work between now and January 15th under Army Corps requirements. It's seen that the best time to do this is during winter conditions. Also helps with minimizing or almost eliminating any temporary disturbance. We think with the frozen ground conditions and the laydown of the existing vegetation, once we leave, that vegetation can come back up. If we do have any tire ruts or any soil disturbance that we not anticipating, we'll come back in the spring, hand rake those areas out and reseed them. But we're not anticipating really any mucking up of the area. If we do have soft areas and the ground's not frozen yet, we use mud mats. And all the construction sequencing and all of these details is outlined on the plans themselves. We did do a full sounding of the ditch itself, so we know where the sediment is, the peaks and valleys. We'll work with Public Works. We know that we have some drainage that's coming in from the neighborhoods, from the catch basins, that goes into the ditch, that are silted in, sedimented in. One of the main goals, if not the goal, is to open those pipes up. So we'll work with Public Works to identify those areas, make sure that those pipes are cleaned, potentially take out a little bit more material in those areas so that there's future storage for additional sediment so that they don't get silted back in as quickly. I mean, this all comes from, used to be done by mosquito control. They used to go in and dredge this out. But years ago, DEP, and they used to just side cast it. They used to dig it out and then cast it on the side. DEP years ago outlawed or made it prohibited side casting. So the problem has always been, if we can't side cast, if the municipalities or mosquito control can side cast, and this stuff has contaminants in it, it's too expensive for the municipalities to get rid of it. Here, we're using the mitigation monies from the Waterfront Square project to be able to pay for not only the work, but most importantly, the disposal. So that's the project in a nutshell. Happy to answer any questions. Also with me tonight is Kyle Lally from Hancock, our wetland scientist, with regards to any questions on any of the vegetation that's out there or any of the mitigation.
Actually,
Mr. Chairman?
Yep, Joel
Hi.
first.
Hi, do you have a diagram of, we didn't get a diagram, we usually do. I'd appreciate in the future that we get a diagram also. Was that just a? Oh, you do?
We have full plans for that. I've got some 11 by 17s.
Well, don't bother showing now, because I can use this here. My question is in reference to the Revere Street area. So this project doesn't intend to, it's going to clean the culvert underneath Revere Street, but it doesn't intend to go south of Revere Street. Is that what you're telling us?
No, it is. It's from the MBTA station, from the Wonderland station, we're at 1A, northerly to Revere Street, so past Calumet and that whole neighborhood.
Oh,
So that whole section. So here's North Shore. Here's the end of the MBTA parking lot. So this is where the culvert comes from the dog track. There's an 800-foot culvert that comes from the dog track, eventually crosses under Shawmut and Sagamore, under 1A, and comes out here. So the project starts at that point and runs northerly all the way to Revere Street. So northerly to Revere Street, and there's the head wall on the south side of Revere Street. This is our access point in between the two Vanguard buildings. Then we pick up at Revere Street, and here's the north end of the culvert, and we work northerly along that, behind the ball field and Bianchi's.
We're going, Joe, from Wonderland all behind up to behind Bianchi's.
Then this continues all the way to the bend. There's a 90-degree bend in the Eastern County ditch.
and then you head right towards North Shore Road.
Right, and then there's the bend, and we come down. Here's Bay Road, and that's the access into the work area. You've got Ellerton Street and Acadia and North Shore, so we're working all the way down back to the culvert at North Shore. So it's 2,600 feet.
Well, the reason why I asked, for some reason, it wasn't, I wasn't sure if you were going underneath Revere Street. That area was brought up in another project about a year ago. Council Powers, or more than that. And I'm glad to see that you're doing that particular area, because that's an area that has had some difficulty down on that.
Right, and from our soundings, that's the worst area. That's the highest sediment loads. We know that at least two, if not three of the main drainage culverts that come into the Eastern County ditch are covered over. So it definitely is.
Now, this culvert isn't lined at all, is it?
No,
It's just open ground.
it's just an open ditch.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, historically, there was, Diamond Creek was there, back in the 1800s, early, maybe to the turn of that century. And, they straightened it out, ran it parallel to the blue line tracks, right of way. So was periodically cleaned out, but it hasn't been cleaned out in many, many years.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Raponi?
Yes, I just had a question. In the past, you mentioned that it was paid for by mitigation monies. I didn't hear the rest of what you had to say. In the past, it was paid for by mitigation monies from who?
No, this project is being paid for.
Is being.
Paid for.
And previously,
Previously, it was handled by mosquito control, Massachusetts mosquito control.
so that was formerly being paid by the mosquito control, but currently is paid by mitigation monies.
Right, this project will be paid for by the Waterfront Square project, Eurovest development, and the mitigation monies from that project, yes.
Thank you. I didn't hear the other part.
Okay.
I heard the mosquito control was out of it, but I didn't fully understand the rest of it. Thank you.
Any other commissioners have questions? I know Councilor Powers is here. You got anything you want to say, Councilor, you want to speak before I get any proponents or any other proponents or opponents?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Just briefly, back under Mayor Ambrosino, we were very fortunate to have Arcadia, Argyle, York, and Elton Streets. We did all the catch basins down there. We tripled the capacity of the catch basins. We also tripled the capacity of the lateral lines. Just recently, under Mayor Arrigo, we just did Calumet Street, not Shawmut, Calumet Street, Sagamore, Dunn Road, which is practically next door to the dog track, okay? We're still getting problems down there, okay? And the reason for that is that until we get this Eastern County ditch cleaned, those catch basins are not going to work effectively as they should and could. Essex County Mosquito Control, for many years, they'd come in and do work down there, cutting the Phragmites and cleaning the ditch and the culverts where possible. But this is a much more extensive effort. It's something that I think will benefit the residents down in that area for years to come. And once we get this done, it'll be incumbent upon the city to make sure that we continue keeping that clean year after year and not just doing it once and walking away. And that'll be minimal work at that point, once the major work is done. So again, I would urge the commission to work to go forward with this. It's a major improvement for the Oak Island and the Lower Revere Street area, and it's something that everybody has wanted to see happen for an awful long time. Thank you.
Is there any other proponents who want to speak? Don Tremella from the Water Department, if you'd like to speak, sir?
Good evening. I'm Don Charmella, Superintendent of Water, Sewer and Drain. And as Councilor Powers said, that we've done a lot of work to our catch basins systems, our stormwater system. But if, these, as clean as they can be, the catch basins can be as clean as they can be, as clean as the laterals can be, the water has no place to go. So effectively what's happening is all the outfalls that come out to the ditch are all just covered with sediments, materials. So as soon as the water tries to get out, it just has no place to go. Unfortunately, the ditch should have been cleaned, years ago, but because of, I suppose, the paperwork that's involved with it, it just wasn't. I can tell you from firsthand that I've been out there. I mean, there are shopping carriages out there from, Serratanis. So, and the benefit, as far as, conservation is concerned, Phragmite is not a natural species for our area, for this ditch. The only reason why the Phragmites are actually are thriving is because the salt water has no way to get back up to the ditch. And, let me just go back a little bit. When I talk about the ditch is the open part. The culverts are the closed parts. So under Revere Street, that's a culvert. Going to the Wonderland dog track, that's a culvert. It's closed. But the open parts are ditches. But effectively, what should happen is every tide cycle, the salt water should be able to come up freely, and it just can't make its way up and kill the frag, because the frag thrives on fresh water, and that's all that's really there is fresh water and some brackish water. So with basically what you're doing is restoring it to some resemblance of what it used to be, and so it really would be a positive step for us and for me to be able to dewater our city, every low tide, get the storm water that collects and be able to get it out and then let the cycle just continue. So that's about it. And if there's any other questions?
Thank you, Donnie.
Yes, Donnie,
Sorry. Go ahead, Commissioner.
you made me think of another question here. On North Shore Road, in that area, is there any kind of a flapper or float stop on a big tide or a flood tide?
So so as soon as it comes from where it goes under North Shore Road where Arcadia is, as soon as it goes under, no, it just goes through a culvert under North Shore Road, and then it goes out into the marsh. But once it's out into the marsh, you do have the Oak Island tide gate. So once it gets past there, it's gone. And then the cycle starts all over again. So then, as you had a high tide coming up, the salt water comes back in effectively as long as the ditch is clean and has the ability to have some capacity. That salt water comes back up. Hopefully, we can get it back up to where it belongs to, right where the head wall is where Wonderland Auto Sales is. That's where it should go if there was some capacity. But unfortunately, right now, you have probably 4 to 5 feet of sediments in that ditch. And so instead of water, it's just mud or just, sediments. So what you want is that salt water to come all the way back at a high tide, and then at the low tide, it rushes back out. Those cycles are what kill the frag. So the frag won't even be there. And like I said, the frag is an invasive species. If you see frag, it's not really kind of a natural thing for it to be there. It's because that was a saltwater ditch when it was Diamond Creek. Salt water came in, salt water went out, and right now it's just kind of static, storm water, whatever we can get out. But the city really doesn't have. The city can't effectively get rid of its stormwater with that ditch. We have 2 other ditches, main ditches, the Central County ditch that works rather well. That's not as mired with material, and then we have the Town Line Brook, which is kind of in bad shape, but that's a DCR issue. But we need these major ditches to be able to dewater our city every low tide. If we had the ability to get rid of our stormwater effectively, then when we have a high tide and these tremendous rainstorms that we're getting, at least we can be starting at, 0 again, instead of having, these standing water, these standing puddles and the ditches that are full already to capacity. So.
Thank you, Donnie.
Okay.
Any other, Bob O'Brien from? Turn on the mic, please.
My name is Bob O'Brien. I live at 10 Ocean Avenue, and I'm the Director of Economic Development for the City of Revere. On behalf of the mayor and the city, we stand in unequivocal and full support of your approval of this project. It is long awaited, badly needed. The Eastern County Ditch is an integral part of our drainage system. It is not working well now. If we don't deal with this on an urgent basis, we're going to experience exacerbations of the kind of floods we've been seeing increasingly in that area, and this project will address and to a large extent resolve it. I don't really need to add much to what Councilor Powers and Superintendent Chiaramella have said, except to reiterate the support of the city for your approval of this. I would also like to take the opportunity to acknowledge the people who have not just prepared this petition, but have worked over countless weeks and months to bring us to that stage. And that certainly includes Eurovest, who is providing the mitigation funds to actually allow this to happen now, and particularly Paul Feldman, who represents them, certainly Doug McGarrah on behalf of the city, who works for Foley Hoag, Joe Pasnola and Kyle Lally from Hancock have been absolutely indispensable. Sean Healy and Mel Higgins of Weston and Sampson, who will be overseeing this, have been critical aspects of this. And I cannot emphasize enough how important Don Chiaramella was to making this happen. The sampling process that allowed us to get to this stage was a major undertaking, which Don made happen, and the city owes a debt of gratitude to him. So for all of those people, for the Ward Councilor Powers, who has been an advocate of this for years, and hopefully to the commission itself for approving this, we thank you and we urge your prompt and positive action. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Any of the proponents that want to speak on behalf of this? All right, hearing seen none, closing out that side of the hearing. Any opponents that want to speak? What is the will of the commission?
I make a motion, we should order conditions.
Okay, first by Joe, seconded by
I'll second.
Heather. I have a motion to close out the public hearing.
Make a motion to close.
Motion made by Ann, seconded by
I'll second that.
David Eatoff. All right, Joe, once we get that, the file number, then I'll get you the order of conditions. I'm gonna have them sign the signature page, but once we get the file number on file, then I'll get you the order of conditions in the mail right away. All right? All right, next item is the public meeting. It's a last-minute added item on the
Excuse me, I'd
agenda.
like to thank you all for this support.
Thank you, Council. If you can just
Our
shut that off. for
pleasure,
me.
our
Thank you.
pleasure.
Next item on the agenda is a public meeting certificate of compliance, Mass DEP file 0610696. Greg Antonelli, 5 Garofalo Street, completion of a 2-family home. An order of conditions was issued last May, I believe it was, and the project is completed. I gave you guys the plans tonight. I got the as-built. I actually went by there this morning. The driveway, the place looks beautiful. The driveway's all, thank you, Joe, all pavers that are, the water can flow right through. Everything we wanted, he did. So the project is complete. Mr. Salvo, name and address for the record, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Rick Salvo, Engineering Alliance, 194 Central Street in Saugus, Mass. Here this evening on behalf of Greg Antonelli. I think Mr. Chairman just gave my entire presentation. There's pictures in there in addition to the as-built that I think speak for themselves. The only resource area that was present in this particular application was land subject to coastal storm flowage. So the order of conditions granted permission to put a couple of inches of fill on the lot to raise the grade to enable the construction of the house and allow for the house to be removed from the floodplain. The place was completely sodded, so it was instantly vegetated. It's completely stabilized and built per plan. So I guess with that, I'll turn it back to you for any questions or comments that you have.
Anybody have any questions?
I'd just like to go over a couple of things I've noticed on the plans. A very nice plan, by the way. I noticed that there's 2 dry wells.
Correct.
One is, I would assume, the gutters of the house.
They're both the gutters of the house.
Oh,
So
okay.
it was just easier the way the configuration was for the gutters. The original plan only called for 1 dry well. The applicant put in 2.
I thought there was only one when we
Correct.
initially did this. How big is the, so they're open on the bottom?
They're 500 gallons, so they're a 6-foot diameter structure, surrounded in an envelope of crushed stone, holes in the side and open on the bottom.
Now, how big do you have to make the crushed stone area to handle that volume? That's just a point of curiosity. I'd like to know.
It was 10 by 10, so it's a 10 by 10 by 3.5 feet tall with a 6-foot diameter structure in the middle of it that's open.
Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions? Do I have a motion to approve the certificate of compliance?
I'll make that motion.
First by Joe, seconded
I'll
by?
second.
By Heather Ligia. Thank you very much, Rick. If you hang tight 2 minutes, I'll give you a copy, the original now. The only other item I have on the agenda, which all you guys signed it, was for Wheeler Brader. I'm sending them a letter for their concerns. It's gonna be in by Friday. So I got all your signatures, all you guys read it. I'm gonna get that in the mail today. So if there's no other order of business, can I have a motion to close out the meeting? No, not yet. Not yet? Okay. Why?
I would like a point of personal privilege.
Sure.
To wish, we won't be seeing you again until New Year, everyone out there. And I'm here on behalf of the entire committee to wish you a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, and all that goes with the holidays. Best wishes for the holidays from all of us to all of you.
Thank you, Commissioner Raponi, and I reiterate, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah to everybody, and do I have a motion to close out the public hearing now?
It's okay now.
Okay, so I have a first by Ann Raponi
I'll second.
and seconded by Heather. Thank you.